So I know it's been a while since I promised a second video, but here it is, and I decided to kind of do a mixture of different suggestions you guys gave me. So I'll be doing a book review and a deep discussion on Atlas Shrugged. If you're not familiar with Atlas Shrugged or Ayn Rand, it's based upon the philosophy known as objectivism, and Ayn Rand is the creator of objectivism. Um, and the whole novel is pretty much a story told that supports this philosophy. It's the story of all these big business owners, most of whom own train companies. And that doesn't sound very appealing or exciting off the bat, but it's actually a pretty gripping story. The main character is a woman named Dagny Taggart. She owns Taggart Transcontinental, and she is a very strong-willed, stubborn woman, I guess. Um, Basically, the story explores her struggles with her company and her values and the values of the country, and it gets pretty interesting at points, very political. Um, Now, when I went into reading this book, I read it simply because I had heard so much about Ayn Rand, and she was pretty much rejected as a philosopher when she first came into the world. I mean, a lot of people were fascinated with this book, but there was also a lot of opposition to objectivism. Um, and in my philosophy club at school, a lot of kids would kind of rip apart Ayn Rand and her philosophy just because of how radical it was. So when I went into this book, I was trying to read it with an open mind and just take her philosophy for what it was, not think about what other people had said about her. Um, and I found that kind of hard to do. Um, Her views are certainly very radical. I mean, objectivism is basically an extreme form of capitalism where she believes that no one should share anything at all ever. There shouldn't be taxes on anything. There should be no such thing as charity. She even describes charity at one point as the opposite of justice, which is an interesting thing to say. Um, but once you get past how extreme her philosophy is, it's still a really well written book and a really enjoyable story. I mean, as I was getting into it, it is like over 1,000 pages long. Um, I was kind of agreeing with some of what she had to say, but by the end, it had kind of been drilled into me so much that it was exhausting, and I can see how if you strongly disagreed with what she had to say, it could be a really dreadful book for you. Um, I don't entirely agree with what she says. I don't think it's the most evil thing I've heard either. Um, I was just kind of indifferent to it. Um, since that is most of the book, it did make it a bit dry at points. For example, there's one part toward the end where a character has this monologue that literally goes on for 50 pages, and I just kind of skipped it because I knew what it was going to say, and I didn't really want to hear it. So, um, but apart from that, most parts of the book were pretty gripping. There's really strong characters. Like I said, the writing is extremely intricate. She doesn't use any big words, really. I mean, only occasionally did I have to look something up, but at the same time, her writing comes across as really intelligent and well-structured and whatnot, and it was definitely a really well-written book. I looked it up today, and it's the sixth longest book ever written in the English language, at something like 600,000 words, something like that. So it took me like a month to read. I had to read it small chunks at a time. That's one thing I'd recommend if you do want to read it, is not to take it all on at once as this big challenge, but to break it up, read a chapter a day. Some of the chapters are like 80 pages long. Um, but it was definitely very enjoyable, and objectivism is certainly an interesting philosophy. If you're familiar with the Sort of Truth series, which I think I talked about once, by Terry Goodkind, it is loosely based off of objectivism. After reading this book, it's easy to see what parts he took from objectivism and which parts he left out, because I agree much more with Terry Goodkind's philosophy, um, which basically supports truth and reason over blind faith. Um, this book deals a bit with that too, but Terry Goodkind kind of leaves out all the extreme capitalism. Um, but one idea that Ayn Rand supported that I thought was pretty interesting was just her perspective on love and relationships and how that's supposed to work. When she applies subjectivism to love, it makes a lot more sense than when she applies it to the economy, for example. there are a couple scenes in particular where there are some stressed couples talking about their relationship, and in one scenario, this man says he wanted to be loved for no reason other than to be loved. He didn't want to be loved for his money or his business or even his character. He wanted to be loved for nothing. He wanted to be undeserved. And his partner said, you know, that's not love. Love is loving someone for who they are, everything that they are. And yeah, it's pretty simple, but it makes sense. And that goes hand in hand with Ayn Rand's view of how she thinks nothing should be unearned. You should never take something from someone. It should always be earned. Um, and I guess she believes that love too should be earned, which is like, yep, I guess that makes sense. It's not a very big statement or anything, but so it was interesting. But if you're going to read Atlas Shrugged or The Fountainhead, which is its predecessor, definitely take it with a grain of salt or two, because she has some pretty radical views. But anyway, I apologize again for taking 4 months or so to make this video. I don't even recall when I put up that last one. I'll try to do more stuff in the future, but there's no promises because I'm going off to the middle of nowhere for the summer as usual, and there will not be internet there. So, pretty much I've got 2 weeks to make videos. I'll do what I can. I'm going to put up a juggling video, hopefully, because I've been working on 5-ball juggling, which is just as difficult as it sounds. But, anyway, thanks for watching. Put up video ideas in the comments if you want. I'll try to make more stuff, but it's going to be tricky with this summer. But anyway, I'll see you guys later.